Hello and welcome to Nbyula Talks. Before we begin, we have a few updates and reminders for you. We would love to have you be part of our Nbyula community. And you can do so by logging on to www.nbyula.com, where you can join communities related to your area of interest, register for upcoming Nbyula Talks, book one-to-one skylifts, and view other upcoming events. You can also take this opportunity to connect with fellow learners or the speaker by sending a connection request. When you connect with the speaker, you will be able to contact them directly as well as receive updates about their upcoming talks. Kindly note that during this session, you will not be able to switch on your camera or unmute your mic. To ask questions during the talk, go to the audience chat, type your question, and select Post Your Question. If your question has not been answered during the talk, you will be notified once it's been answered, or if your question has not been answered during the talk, you can go to www.nbyula.com and spin a quest, and your questions will be answered. Thank you for joining us today. We hope this talk broadens your horizons and takes you to new learning heights. Hi everyone, welcome to another Nbyula Talk. My name is Sarah and today we'll be discussing the best time management strategies that you could use during your IELTS reading exam. Are you ready? Let's get started. I'm just going to share my screen. Till then, all right, here we go. So first of all, let's just have a brief introduction to the IELTS exam. For those of you who are new to the IELTS exam, this will just be a little bit more information for you. And those of you who already have an idea about the IELTS exam, this will just be a recap. Just a minute. Sort out some technical things here. All right. All right, so IELTS stands for International English Language Testing System. This exam is for those non-native English language speakers who are looking to work, study, or migrate abroad. This test will look at your 4 English language skills, and they are your listening, your reading, your writing, and your speaking. And as we discussed at the beginning, we'll be looking at the reading section. The IELTS academic reading section consists of 3 sections with 40 questions, and you have 1 hour to complete it. The marking scheme goes as follows, is that you get 1 mark for each correct answer. It's important to know the type of questions that will come up during the exam, so we'll go through it now as well. You'll have different kinds of questions in the 3 sections that you will face, and they could be multiple choice questions. They can be matching heading questions. They can be identifying information or matching information, identifying the writer's views or claims by answering yes, no, or not given. Same thing for identifying information, giving true, false, or not given. Multiple choice, picking 1 correct answer from the given options. Matching headings, you'll have a heading and you'll have to find the paragraph that matches with that heading. Also, sentence completion, diagram labeling, summary, note, table, flowchart completion, short answer questions, and matching sentence endings. So just go through these one more time. Okay, I'll just repeat it because it is important to know the questions that are coming up. So just have a look. All right. Okay. So now that we got the general things out of the way, let's go on to discussing what today's talk is all about. Again, it's looking at time management strategies that you can use during your IELTS reading exam. All right, so the first one that will save time when you're practicing as well as when you're attempting the paper is skimming through the passage. First of all, let's understand what skimming is. Skimming is a speed reading skill that you can use, and it's basically quickly reading through the passage to understand the overall gist or get an overall idea of what the passage is about. Now, this is quite important because you don't want to spend too much time reading every single sentence or every single word in the passage. That is very time consuming, and you honestly don't need to do that. You just need to understand the gist of the passage, and then you go on to answer the question. So skimming will help you do the same. I have a passage in the next slide, and what I would like you to do is take 20 seconds to just quickly skim through the passage. When you're skimming through the passage, you'll be looking for keywords, key phrases, maybe nouns, proper nouns, names, dates, numbers, anything that you find kind of popping out at you. Make a note of that when you're skimming through the passage. Okay. Anything that you feel, you can also take notes while you're doing this. Okay, skimming, just go through and find the general idea of the passage. Okay, 5 more seconds. All right, so after you've skimmed through the passage, I have 2 questions for you. Let's go on to see. What is the purpose of this report? So, and the options are A, to describe the history of alien life, B, to describe government cover-ups, C, to describe the history of UFO sightings, or D, to describe UFO in popular movies. All right, so go back and think about it. So usually on the reading paper, you will have the reading passage next to you, and then you'll have the questions aside. So you will have side to side, so you can go back and skim through and find the answer. So the overall idea of this report or this passage is basically the answer is C, to describe the history of UFO sightings. So skimming will also give you, like we said, a general idea of the passage, so you know that, okay, this is what the passage is about. So it'll help you kind of, decode it one by one. Okay, the next question that I have is, why are UFO sightings so controversial? A, they have never been proved. B, there are many sightings. C, the government covers up sightings. Or D, there are very few UFO sightings. Okay, after you've skimmed through the passage, you will know that the answer is A, because they have never been proved. So somewhere in the passage, there would be this answer, either paraphrased, maybe it won't be the exact word or phrase, but it's somewhere in the passage. So skimming will save you a lot of time when you're attempting your paper. All right. The next thing that will save you time is that if you pay attention to the introduction and the conclusion. Most of the time, the author who has written the passage would give their ideas at the beginning and at the end. So that's the introduction and the conclusion. All the rest of it in the body is just extra information for you, right? So when you look at the first sentence or the first paragraph or anything at the beginning, that's giving you an introduction, introducing you to the passage and giving you more information. And the conclusion is just basically summarizing and giving you a summary of what the whole passage was about. So here I have an example. You can also look at the title. Look at the first sentence. There are now over 7 million motor vehicles in the world, and the number is rising by more than 40 million each year. And also the ending sentence of this paragraph, which is, this dependence on motor vehicles has given rise to major problems, including environmental pollution, depletion of oil resources, traffic congestion, and safety. So, be it if you have multiple paragraphs where you have to find information, or just a chunk like we saw in the previous slide, this paragraph about the UFOs, right? If you just read the first and the last sentence, you'll be able to get an idea, a general idea of what the passage is all about or what that certain paragraph is about. So do pay attention to the first line and the last line, or the first sentence and the last sentence, or the first paragraph and the last paragraph to get that idea. And what you'll be looking for are keywords, key phrases, anything that jumps out to you that you feel, okay, this is an important thing that might come up in the question. So here it is. Make a note on the question paper so that you can find it again when you go back to write your answers. Again, this might also help if you are going through the passage and you are spending a little too much time on one answer. You'll be able to leave that question and come back to it later. All right. Okay, so this is where I was saying identifying keywords. Identifying keywords will also help you save time during your exam because these words will most definitely be part of the question as well as part of the answer. And I'm tying in two of them together, two strategies together, which is read all the questions before you begin answering. Okay, so these two go hand in hand, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But before that, I have a poll for you guys. All right, and I'm just going to post it here. It's an audience chat. A poll will be coming up, and the poll is, all right, the poll is basically, what do you guys feel? What do you feel? Is it better to read the passage first or read the question first? And also you can tell me why you feel the way you feel after you've answered, right? Is it important to read the question first or read the passage first? All right, answers coming in. The majority of us have said that it's better to read the question first. All right, if you want to tell me why, I'll also tell you why I feel the same. I also agree to read the question first. Okay, so I feel the same way. I feel it's very important and it's better to read the questions before you begin answering because the questions have the key words in there, right? So when you're going to look for it in the passage, it's easier. You're probably looking for maybe a certain date or a certain name or a time or a specific noun from that question. So it's always better to save time. What you can do is when you get your paper, have a look at the questions first if you'd like, go through it, see what's going to be asked of you, and then go and skim the passage. When you're skimming through the passage, you can pick up those keywords, underline those keywords, circle those phrases, circle the keywords, so that you can go back and answer the question accordingly. All right. So since this is a reading session, we are going to read together. But before that, let's use this technique. Okay, I have the questions. First question, where did Fleming study? Okay, so I've given you the title, Alexander Fleming and Penicillin, right? So you have an understanding of what this passage will be about. It's about a person named Alexander Fleming, and it's about penicillin. All right, so question number one again, where did Fleming study? The key word here is where. So you're looking for a place. Second question, what was Fleming studying when he realized that mold grew on a set of culture dishes? So keywords here I've highlighted are what, because you're looking, what is it? What was he studying? Okay, so you're looking for what he was studying, and also culture dishes. That's a keyword that you can find in the passage so that it jumps up at you and the answer will be somewhere there. And three, who gave penicillin its name? So you're looking for a person's name again, who? All right. And what was responsible for the most deaths in war prior to this discovery? Okay, so you're looking for what was responsible. So the keyword here would be most deaths, war. All right, so let's read the passage together. Alexander Fleming was born in Ayrshire on August 6, 1881, to a son of a farmer. He moved to London at the age of 13 and later trained as a doctor. In 1928, while studying influenza, Fleming noticed that mold had developed accidentally on a set of culture dishes being used to grow the staphylococci germ. The mold had created a bacteria-free circle around itself. Fleming experimented further and decided to call the active substance penicillin. It was two other scientists, however, Australian Howard Florey and Ernst Chain, a refugee from Nazi Germany, who developed penicillin further so that it could be produced as a drug. They decided to unravel the science beneath what Fleming called penicillin's antibacterial action. At first, supplies of penicillin were very limited, but by the 1940s, it was being mass-produced by the American drugs industry. In the war, penicillin proved its mettle. Throughout history, the major killer in wars had been infection rather than battle injuries. In World War I, the death rate from bacterial pneumonia was 18% in World War II. It fell to less than 1%. All right, now we will not have as much time as we took to read this passage during the exam, but just to give you an idea, we read it through slowly. So now we can go back to our questions that we had. First question, where did Fleming study medicine? So we're looking for a place. As you quickly scan through and skim through, we can see, okay, we found a place, London. Okay, so the question there is, where did he find it? It was London, okay, and yes. All right, so that's the answer. Next question, what was Fleming studying when he realized that mold grew on a set of cultured dishes? So we're looking and we're skimming through and we're scanning through, and it says here in 1928 while studying influenza. So the answer there is influenza. Okay, and number 3, who gave penicillin its name? That's probably a given, we all know. It's Alexander Fleming. And last but not least, what was responsible for the most deaths in the war prior to this discovery? Infection. We can see it in the last line there. All right, here it is. Infection. Throughout history, the major killer in wars had been infection. Right? So do you see how we picked out the key words from the question? First, we read through the question, and then we picked out the key words so that it would help us find the answer in the passage. So another time management strategy that you could use, which would be reading the question first, picking out the keywords in the question, going back and scanning through the passage, or just spending a little bit more time, not as more time than needed, but maybe 1 to 2 minutes, probably just scanning through and skimming through, and then finding those keywords from the question in the passage and then answering the question. All right. Okay. Next one that will save you time is don't waste time on answers you cannot find. We often spend so much time, or we often feel that we need to answer each and every question that's there on the paper. And what happens is when we feel that way, we will basically spend more time than needed to find an answer. So here, the time management strategy would be don't waste time or don't spend time on answers that you cannot find. If you are unable to find the answer at that given time, just skip the question and move on to the next one. Also, you might realize that these answers in the passage come together. There might be 3 or 4 answers already in one passage or one paragraph where you can answer several questions as well. So if you are unable to find that, just move on and come back to it. Leave some time to come back to the questions that you haven't answered and answer it accordingly. Okay. Another time management strategy that you can do before you attempt the paper is practice timing yourself. As we saw, there are many types of questions that you will face in the reading exam, which is why I said at the beginning itself, it's important to know the questions that you might face during the exam so that you'll be able to answer it. So practice timing yourself, right? Choose a certain type of passage and question that relates to it and answer those questions so you know how much time it's taking you to answer the question, be it multiple choice, be it matching headings, and use those strategies that you come up with to, in turn, answer the questions. So practice timing yourself, go through the past papers, understand what the question is, understand what the passages, the different types of passages that you might face during the exam, and know that this is how much time I'm spending on this question or this type of question. So maybe I can tone it down. Maybe I can just, instead of reading, if you're somebody who really wants to read through the whole passage, cut it down, learn the skimming and scanning techniques, speed reading techniques, go and find the key words in the passage, and then use those techniques so that you can answer the question faster and better. All right. Next, check your answers. Now, this might not be a time management strategy, but it's something that will help you and will give you that extra time to do this. So it's important that you leave some time to check your answers. You have 1 hour for this paper. So you might not need, or you might not spend that whole hour on the paper. You might just breeze through the paper after you're skimming and scanning and then go through and see that, oh, okay, I've left an answer here or I've left something there. So make sure that you leave enough time in case you have left blanks, all right, that you can go back and check your answer. Give yourself enough time to do this. And my advice here would be, while you're practicing, try and complete the paper in maybe 50 minutes or 40 minutes, and then give yourself that time to do it. So what happens is, if you cut down your time when you're practicing, you'll know that, okay, if I am able to finish the question in 40 minutes, I have 20 minutes to check my paper. Or if I'm able to finish the paper in 50 minutes, I have 10 extra minutes to check the paper. So when you give that time, maybe you'll have enough time to redo the paper and recheck it, and you might see that you might have answers, blank answers again, or you've made a mistake in between. So you can go ahead and, you know, answer the question again and have time to do that. So make sure that you do leave time to check your answers as well. All right, we've come to the end of the session, but before we do end it, it's time for an audience Q&A. All right, so get your questions going, get your questions in. All right, just a minute. So here's one question that I've seen that has come up on our website as started a quest. Are there any tips and tricks for the IELTS reading? There are many tips and tricks that you could use for the IELTS reading exam. One being the skimming and scanning technique, the speed reading technique, as we say, we put it together. Okay, so learn how to speed read. Make sure that you can pick out keywords and phrases from the passage or from the text or from the paragraphs, and use that in order to answer the questions. Another thing that you can do is understand the type of questions that will come up during the exam, so that, and then practice those so that you know how to answer the questions, each and every question, so that it's not a surprise during the exam. Okay, you might be practicing certain questions. What happens is we get comfortable practicing certain questions. Multiple choice obviously might be the easiest one for us, so we might just do tons of past papers on multiple choice that we might forget to, you know, check out maybe the matching headings type of questions. And that might come up during the exam and we might think, oh no, we did not practice this. So make sure that you understand the different kind of questions that are coming up on the paper and how to answer those as well. All right. All right. Next question that we have, does the IELTS reading section in the test always have 40 questions, or does the number change? All right. So always during the reading exam, there will be 40 questions, which will be divided into 3 sections. So 40 questions, and again, going back to the marking scheme, it'll be 1 mark for each correct answer, right? So you always have 40 questions, I'm sorry, but it might be, the division of the questions might vary, but always 40 questions. All right, what are the different type of questions that can appear in the IELTS reading test? All right, let's go through that. Okay, so let's look through that. As you can see on the screen. All right, there we go. So the different types of questions that you could face are multiple choice, matching headings, identifying writers' views, claims by answering yes, no, or not given, matching information, identifying information by providing the answers true, false, or not given. Also, right, sentence completion, diagram label completion, summary note or table or flowchart completion, short answer questions, and matching sentence endings. All right, so these are the different types of questions that you could face during your IELTS reading exam. Should I earmark time for each type of question in the IELTS reading test? Right, so during the IELTS reading test, you don't really need to earmark it, but just know the different types of questions that are coming up so that it's easier for you to answer. All right, and the way you can do this again is by practicing. Again, I always tell everyone, and during these talks as well, practice, 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 practice the different kind of questions, and so that you know how to answer them and it's not a surprise during the exam. All right, another question. Can I skip and come back to a question during the IELTS reading test? Yes, you can. you can do that. You'll have 3 sections, right? So you have 1 hour to finish 3 sections. So if by chance you want to start with section 3, you can go ahead and start with section 3, answer the questions, come back to section 2 and section 1, and answer those questions as well. Again, as part of the time management strategy, if you are unable to find the answer in the passage, do skip it and come back to it later. Make sure you leave enough time to come back to the skipped questions that you haven't answered, and you can answer it later. But yes, if you are unable to find the answer to the question, skip it and come back to it. All right. Okay, one more question that I have seen on our website was, just give me a minute while I find it. Are there any changes in the IELTS reading exam in 2022? So as of now, there are no changes. There aren't any changes that are coming up or that are there for the IELTS reading this year. The only minuscule change that would be there is that you can do the test from home. And it's the same format as if you do a computer-based test. That's the only change. Otherwise, the format is the same. There are no changes. It's still 3 sections and 40 questions in 1 hour. I hope that you've understood time management strategies that you could use during your reading exam. And if you found this helpful for you, do give your feedback. If you have friends who are preparing for the exam as well, do let them know about this and do share this. Once the recording is available, you will know. All right, so yes. And also a little quote that I'd like to leave with you guys. Remember, time waits for no man. So do practice your time management strategies. And I hope that it will help you during your reading exam. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time for our next talk.